Imagine moving to a new country and needing to learn a new language with sounds that twist your tongue and grammar that rivals ancient Greek in complexity. This was my journey with Polish. My name is Elissavet Pournara Dzieduszynska, and I'm Greek. I never imagined that I would delve into such a challenge. I'm an English teacher, and I teach English as a foreign language to high school students. How many of us, foreign language teachers, put ourselves in the position of our learners? By becoming a foreign language learner yourself, you experience the obstacles and challenges our own learners face. You get in this way a unique insight into the language learning process. As a middle school and high school student in Greece, I studied ancient Greek and Latin. Those languages are dead and are not spoken anymore, but Polish is alive. I visited Poland for the first time in December 2015. My then Polish boyfriend, and now husband, had invited me to spend Christmas with him. Shortly before our departure, during the same late evening, munching, I was taught my first word in Polish, bombonierka. It sounded delightful and so easy to pronounce. However, I was not ready for what would come next. The second word that was attempted to be taught to me did not leave from my lips the way it was supposed to. A weird string of consonants that do not exist in my native language, and a single vowel form the informal way of saying hello in Polish. That word was cześć. At my husband's home, his parents and grandmothers did not speak English. Communicating in Polish was the only way to get close to them. My desire to communicate was just very strong. My urge was to put phrases together in Polish and attempt to produce some speech. And what if I made mistakes? So what? My need to communicate was so strong, and that was all I cared about. Approaching Polish grammar was very interesting for me, and I delighted in the similarities it shares with Greek in complexity. Cases, three genders, conjugation of nouns and adjectives, as well as conjugation of verbs. No matter how long I studied it theoretically, no matter how many grammatical exercises I did, only through the actual usage of the language did I get to know grammar. However, having attempted to study it theoretically before enabled me to understand it better. My background in literary studies has fueled my motivation to explore the Polish language. Language and culture are impossible to separate. My curiosity to discover the Polish literature actually fueled my motivation to get to know its culture. Who are its poets, its writers? What are the great poems and the great novels? One of the first texts I came in touch with was Adam Mickiewicz' Pani Twardowska. Listening to the poem being recited by my husband, some fragments of it actually, made me delight in its rhythm and sound play, without actually understanding its meaning. That was enough for me to get obsessed. Random words from the poem would stick into my mind, and then I would ask my husband what these particular words would mean. I was so much fascinated by this poem's sound play. Writing in Polish came naturally as long as I had a voice in my head speaking to me what I wanted to say. I started my attempt to write in Polish, knowing only some words. And this came to my first attempt to write my first clumsy Polish story as a Christmas gift for my husband's family. Of course, my husband later assisted me with editorial changes, but what was important was that I have felt very creative and enjoyed the process of learning the foreign language. My first attempt to get in touch with key texts in Polish literature that came from a different variety of genres, from fantasy, science fiction, romantic poetry, contemporary fiction, classical literature. Although in translation, was actually what consolidated my ongoing interest in studying the Polish language. However, it was until I moved to Poland in 2021 that I had decided to commit myself to a more systematic study of Polish. Until then, I was living in Greece and I would only visit Poland occasionally. So far, I was interested in exploring and unveiling the layers of the Polish language gradually, whenever I was in the mood to do so, without making any further demands from myself, to stick to something more consistent. So, from a playful and experimental approach, I started shifting towards a more systematic study of Polish. Living in a country where the language is spoken made things easier and at the same time made the need to master the language more imperative. I believe that in certain ways it sped up the whole process. The opportunities to practice the language in my everyday life multiplied exponentially. The YouTube platform played a very important role to my language learning journey. From grammar videos to podcasts, I had the chance to immerse myself in Polish. I have to say that the availability of material as time went by grew, because at the very beginning I remember there were only a very particular number of available resources, and of course this included course books. Setting a particular goal to achieve gave an extra boost to my language learning. The big milestone would be the B1 exam. Achieving this big goal, of course, demanded from me a smaller goal, which could be everyday practice. Frequent and consistent learning proved to be much more beneficial than rarer and lengthier study sessions. Even doing something as simple as listening to a podcast in Polish during my commute to work enabled me to retain my contact with Polish on a daily basis. Imagine finding yourself in a new country, surrounded by unfamiliar sounds, and discovering that each new word you learn tangles you deeper into the network of language. You come to see and observe things, brush the strings of the Polish language, and gradually start building a home there, a nest. They say that home is where the heart is, and for me, literature has always been that home. I close my eyes and I imagine that one day I'll read a Polish novel in Polish and I'll savor all of it. Thank you.